I'm here with Professor Mahmoud Mohieldin, Managing Director of the World Bank. Welcome at the German Development Institute.
Thank you.
Professor Mohieldin, you're joining us today for a public lecture on knowledge sharing for global development. In your lecture, you're introducing the Knowledge for Development report, which was published recently by the World Bank. What are the key messages of this report?
Well, thank you so much for having me and to give me the chance and the opportunity to introduce the first ever knowledge report coming out from the World Bank. Being the first report, this doesn't mean that the bank was ignoring knowledge, but it had been always there in the form of technical assistance, support to different countries. In addition to the kind of knowledge that travels with the World Bank's lending activities and investment operations. So you can really say that the bank is working in two fronts. The first front as a bank lending money, concessional loans, long-term loans, IDA loans as well, which are there for the low-income countries, in addition to different operations in different sectors. But the other front is basically related to the knowledge services and the support to policies. In many cases, such support comes in the form of technical papers, policy advice, suggestions to governments, and in most of the cases, these activities are part of the lending and investment transactions of the bank. If we focus on the pure technical assistance in terms of budget, in a year we estimated that was exceeding $600 million. But if you consider the implicit components of lending and investment activities, the figure is multiples of the pure knowledge kind of spending.
So the World Bank is positioning itself as a knowledge institution, not just a lending bank. Please tell us a little bit about the Open Knowledge Initiative, which the bank launched in 2010.
Well, still money is very important. The World Bank is lending, is very active in this front. But what makes the bank important and relevant to many countries, especially the countries which have the opportunity to access finance from domestic or regional or international sources, they would rely on the bank as a source of knowledge with the lending and investment activities. The Open Data, Open Knowledge and Open Solution Initiative, which was launched by the president of the bank, Mr. Bob Zolik, is basically about to make all of the archives, the databases, the development indicators, the different reports and papers available free of charge for all of those who are interested in development. The bank has a very long history since its establishment in the 1940s, and such archives and data were available at a charge in the past, and some of them were not even known, so there was no demand for them. Since the launching of this initiative, we have 4 million checks and hits on the indicators and the data sets and the reports that we made available. And this is just in less than a year, from July 2010 to June 2011. And by more knowledge and demand of these services, we are seeing more activities in that front, especially that the bank has launched a competition to make the data and information more accessible through computer-based applications and mobile phone-based applications as well. So that in itself was a very interesting exercise that allowed many young talents with their skills to provide ideas on how to maximize the benefits of such data sets and information by using very friendly applications to access the data through them.
So this is a very successful initiative.
Very much so.
You're proposing the build-up of new partnerships. Which actors do you have in mind for these new partnerships?
Well, the very thinking of these partnerships is, I would say, it's a kind of better understanding of the new world that we are living in. The World Bank had been always active in producing good research on different areas of development and related topics and subjects. But in this new world that you see, different centers of excellence are there around the world, not just in the developed countries in the United States and Europe or in Japan, but in many developing countries as well. Realizing this kind of new development, the World Bank has started with partnerships in 6 key areas in a form of platforms: communication and information technology, urbanization, green growth, dealing with the challenges of fragile states and countries in post-conflict times. In addition to jobs. So all of these areas, in addition to jobs and food and agriculture and nutrition. So these are the 6 topics that we're working on. In all of these platforms, we have partners from international organizations, from universities, research centers, and from the private sector, from many of the stakeholders, including active foundations. And here it's an area of partnership where the bank and its staff work as coordinators, and we fund these platforms. But the authorship of the products is very much a kind of a joint activity. And it is not an issue of having some good people isolated from the world for a few months or a couple of years and coming with a decent report. The way that the platforms are working, very much dynamic and interactive and engaging those who are interested in contributing to these 6 important areas. In themselves, they are very important, but in addition to that, they could be considered as global pilots in the way that we are conducting research and advice for policymakers.
Professor Mohieldin, thank you so much for joining us today here at the German Development Institute in Bonn.
Thank you so much.